As modern people, it is commonly believed that people from the past were short. But is this true? Hi, my name's Adam, I'm an ancient Greek reenactor and history enthusiast, and today we're going to find out whether this statement is true. Okay, so this is actually a very interesting topic, and one that comes up quite frequently, which states that ancient people were short. Now, usually these claims come with no real data or archaeological evidence to support these claims. Now, what I'm choosing to focus on today is specifically the statement that the Spartans or Lacedaemonians were short. Now, this misconception can really be traced back to two reasons. One, it's commonly believed that ancient people were just overall short, and two, Plutarch, who writes about Spartan boys being starved, which led to stumped growth. Now, neither of these are quite accurate. Let's explain why. Let's start with the more broad statement, which is that ancient people were short. Now, modern estimates based on archaeological finds and skeletal remains state that the approximate average height for a male in classical Greece was 5 foot 7 inches, or 170.5 centimeters. Let's contrast this to the average height of a male today. Now, the average height obviously differs based on a region. In the United States, the average height is 5 foot 9 inches, or 175 centimeters. Now, this is really not that big of a difference from the Greeks that lived 2,500 years ago. However, this average is not Spartan, so that still begs the question of, were the Spartans who, according to Plutarch, starved, shorter than that of the other Greeks? Well, it is important to note that Plutarch is writing a solid 500 years after classical Sparta, which can make some of his claims questionable. It is also important to note that much of what he writes about is actually about Roman age Sparta, which is a completely different beast to that of classical Sparta. So Plutarch states that Spartan boys were starved, forced to steal, and hence caused their growth to be limited. Now, this certainly seems like a decent answer, as it is a fact. If your body does not have the nutrition it needs, it cannot thrive in growth. However, again, how can we be sure that Plutarch is writing about classical age Sparta? Well, let's now look at what Xenophon says, who was alive during the time of classical Sparta, and contrast what these two writers say. Xenophon states that Spartan boys were not fed too much as to become sluggish, but not fed too little as to become malnourished. In other words, they were fed the perfect amount for what their body needed. This would not cause their growth to be slow, and instead would actually put their body in an ideal environment to thrive and grow. Now let's look at the diet of the Spartans compared to the other Greeks at the time. The general diet for the Greeks involved lots of grain, much imported from modern-day Ukraine, which is still a massive grain-producing country today, and fish. Not many other forms of meat were eaten, however in Sparta this was quite different. Sparta had a much more rich variety of foods, as much of their pastime and hobbies involved hunting. Specifically, swine is mentioned many times, and Spartan kings were given the finest swine from many farms to ensure they could pay their mess duties. They also became famous for their blood soup, and had access to far more forms of meat, including red meat, which was high in vitamin B. This more various diet would actually give them more nutrition than that of the other Greeks, and it's actually theorized that possibly the Spartan blood soup made them taller. Now, let's look at the Greeks' perspective on the Spartans. They are commonly described as being tall or massive by the Greeks, and a connection also is that when giants are commonly depicted in vase art, they are commonly shown wearing laconic styles of clothing. An example of this is the transverse crest, which is quite prominently featured on giant depictions, and can be traced back to originating in Laconia, or the region where Sparta was. This could quite possibly tell us that when depicting giants in art, they chose the closest thing, the Spartans. Now, perhaps the most shocking evidence we have for the Spartans' height was a burial mound in Athens, which had 13 bodies which were found to be Spartans. And we actually even know many of their names. In short, 3 of these bodies are of extra importance. 2 of them are polemarchs, or generals, and another was an Olympic champion. Their names were Charion and Tebrachus, and the Olympic champion was Lacrates. Out of these 13 bodies, the smallest measured to 5 foot 7, which was quite standard for the time. However, the tallest measured to 6 foot 3, or 191 centimeters. This is tall even by today's standards and can show us the type of height that Spartans could grow to. And this is also quite a small amount of bodies that this pool is from. So perhaps the common consensus of ancient people being small is incorrect, especially the Spartans. And for me personally, to find out that one of these Spartans stood at 6 foot 3 inches tall was quite mind-blowing. I hope that you enjoyed this video and learnt something and could hopefully change your perspective on perhaps the things that we take for granted, which might not be true. Thank you so much for watching this video. A reminder, the Leonidas Sparta merch is now out. We have examples of a mug here and also a shirt. I'd really appreciate it if you check that out. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.